Well, welcome. Greetings. Thank you for coming for our today's event. Disrupted your meals and refreshments. That's great. We're going to speak about the product localization. And I would like to start with, to an extent, a joke, a sad joke. So the case is one of the electric gadget shops. Person would like to trade off his phone. Manager looks around and says, sorry, give me a second. Called another manager and says, Sasha, you know English. Can you check whether this phone is locked? So the staffer probably was not localized properly and was unable to deal with the phones. So let's get to the product's localization. What is our agenda? We will have some question at a blitz format for every keynote speaker, and there was some generic question and up for you to respond. If you will not fit into the timing, I will interrupt you. So introductory, same for each and every one. What was the biggest myth of localization with your products, with your businesses you've been faced with? Ola, please start. Thank you. Greeting to all, pleasure to be here. I think the biggest myth, and it's not about our product, that it is easy. So localization, it's easy. Let's just translate content to a different language and that's it. I think it depends a lot on many factors. We speak about different business models, they operate differently, and the way the localization for SaaS or B2B, B2C, different cases, you have to be aware of your audience, what the sorts of audience, cultural peculiarities, and too many factors to be reflected make localization successful. So I think the biggest myth that it is easy. Dmytro, you're the most methodologized case. I think the critical myth that ALM or CGPT can replace localization manager and can do things better than a human being, because at some markets things operates not in that way and some local nuances still are not clear for LLM. Maybe they are too primitive in assessing things as interface or overall to read the context of a given product on a given market under the given behavior. So when Vector says that I can be replaced with AI, yeah, enhance maybe, but not replace. Well, to be third in that question and answer it, the third is unfair, because both my answers already being said. I thought to myself that probably for some geolocations, myth is that it is needed, and for some others that localization is not needed. You know, sometimes it's a bit of fake thinking. Something that English would be helpful is enough, and then you start with English and things are actually do work. Sasha? I can't hear the microphone. Let's note that obvious thing to be mentioned. That's the myth that if you launched something locally, trust in your expertise. We've done something similar before and it should work. That's probably the biggest myth that I face. Although we've launched things for several times and we stop on the same shovel again, we know how things been made there, here, elsewhere, but you have to reconsider things and open things in a new way. So every new location, you should be curious, you should be childish and ask unobvious questions. Maybe there are things that people are living with and facing with and see the way that your market being traded on a 10 markets, but 11th one would be absolutely different. So you should keep it in mind constantly. Things that you know, that could be your myth that is going to be successful elsewhere. Thank you. You'll be first on the next question, Fedir. So, Forma. You create businesses for B2C audience SAS, so a lawyer in US has to sign something quickly, maybe change format, download the document. What was your case of localization? Was the most unexpected or surprising, and what you've learned from that? My favorite case of localization, that's Japan. We are quite a strong player on the Japanese market. Nowadays, when we introduced the first localization, market was not moving. That was a very generic case. Then it appeared that some investments were needed to get possibility, first of all. So the first car brands, well, a Saturn, how about that? Tens thousands dollars to be earned. And there are local card brands, and part of population is very actively using that, so Visas, MasterCards. So in order to receive those, you have to become a partner. To do so, you need to have a background of income. And the first point, that at some locations where local popular methods of payments are available, you may lose a significant part of audience by not having these methods of payment. But in order to have those methods of payment, you have to do some profound work done. And we done that, and our metrics been improved. And the key thing here, that things been adjusted when we hired natives, local marketologists who got experience with Japanese market, who deal with content. And originally that was your own team. Yeah. So what happened? It appeared that this is a very sensitive market. People feel the rhythm of the text that you copyright if you do it wrong way. People feel the register of respect when you address. For you to be aware, Japan is not the place where you can tell in the Western way, download now. In Japan, you should say, we would be extremely pleased if you would use and refer to our product, please. So a bit of, and there are some unobvious things as the result that LLM won't be able to cope with, or sort of a Western mind person would not be familiar with, but these are really very critical and sensitive. When you do your job qualitatively, your local client would start feeling that this is something local, Japanese, friendly, related in UX. Well, a very tough case dealing with Arabic languages, because they read and write from right to left, and you have to redo UI to make a proper user experience. You have to mirror all the product, so not the easy and complicated thing, because for a tech team it gets more difficult to support, because you have a mirror version, original version, and it's quite a significant technical challenge. So the more localization you face with, the more micro details you get to, and more difficult the challenge is to develop the product at every localization in a systemic way. Thank you. Let's stick to Asia. Dmytro, question to you. You have a great experience in China, Korea, and Japan. From your experience, what were the most interesting cases from design, translation, development standpoint, or maybe legal nuances? What was the most exciting, so you would be willing to share with the wider audience? Well, Fedir reminded me the Asian case that had happened some time ago, but that relates to payments. Some 12 years ago, we were operating in India, and we know about B2B payments through cryptocurrency. Back then, P2P payments as a service was not that popular, and Indian to Indian in the same village, while there is a possibility to pay for subscription, for instance. That was interesting case introduced in the commerce, but just came to my mind. I can confirm what has been mentioned about Japan, and from a surprising thing that we faced with the Japanese or Korean markets has nothing common in between, neither from interface nor from visualization standpoint, no tone of voice. For instance, Koreans are more Americanized, although history says that it should be more or less the same, but in fact, no. And more familiar addresses are better received than in Japan, but from the visual standpoint, that's absolutely different case. And from Korean standpoint, it's much easier. We have results of minimalistic visualization, BTRs or crypto or whatsoever. From the design standpoint, well, I don't know, some sort of Japanese fast food, that's what we do in Japan, for instance. But the biggest challenge is China. We have quite a significant share of income from China, and it's absolutely different world, that it is not a democratic state. And there are significant operational challenges to work in China, even through App Store, which was probably the simplest thing to happen. You still have to get a local licensing in order to advertise in App Store. You should have an additional licenses, local license. For instance, some cloud services are not working, Google, Amazon. You have to be aware and you have to learn the DevOps and develop local service-supported infrastructure. Besides, it's absolutely different behavior in terms of payment attitude and refunds. From the refund standpoint, China increases the average market elsewhere, and policy for refunding is absolutely different. Sometimes we can provide a double refund, so we have peer-to-peer refunds and returns through App Store. If you're not going to do that, Chinese is not going to complain to App Store, but is going to complain on you to their customer rights organization, and you may lose your license and you won't be able to operate in China. So you have to be very careful in calculating pros and cons. In terms of design, probably the strangest thing about China, that design of advertising materials and applications do not match each other. So we normally tend to do the consistency with the end users, so see some creativity in application and icon. From China's standpoint, it works differently, and if your application can be a bit more aggressive from our standpoint, because the red color and lucky numbers, tariffs with 6 is better than tariffs with 9s as elsewhere in different markets, but from advertisement, it more looks like what we refer to China, when you have to treat with respect, do not push, do not force, do not be too aggressive, download now, get service immediately or whatsoever. So these are probably the major points. Any amendments? Anything to add? I just recalled that Japan has such thing. They don't have little coins, kopecks, and when you refer to kopecks, they think these are some thousands. Do they pay? Well, not everyone thinks like that, but there are nuances or like minor details that may be omitted during the product research, not to pay attention and think that you did your bit and pieces, but this little minor detail would be an obstacle on the way, or then get a complaint from a communist party. Well, it's Japan. They have no communist party in there. Well, thank you, Sasha. Your case entering Brazil. You are for a year there. You had an interesting case on localizing your pay systems. Can you highlight how that from the legal standpoint and practical application by hands? Well, what Dima had mentioned about China, same in Brazil with refunds. People like in Ukraine have like 14 days and you secure that 14 days for refund cannot be submitted. Brazil has 7 days by law, but that is so socialistic state that they can request half a year after get a training and then seek a refund. If you do not do that, they have the webpage Reclame. It's like a big garbage bin where people put all the negative comments, and if you're there, it's no good for you, and people can seek a refund, put you on this garbage bin, and then take you to the court. So to an extent, reminded me of China. Yeah, pay systems, something that could be underestimated. We were researching the country. We had a long list, short list. We narrowed that to Brazil. We did a factor test and things that we've been sort of exploded. They don't use Visa and MasterCard. That was not obvious to us, so we redo things. We relaunched based on their local cards. The other thing, which was not obvious, absolutely, Brazilians are buying things on a credit. They don't care. The only thing that they care is their monthly payment should not exceed $50. Even T-shirt on the shopping mall, they would buy for 6 months credit payment. And it was difficult to build up such a system because we, as a new provider, paying in parts, were not welcome because we were unknown. And they said, we can process your payments, but that would be your loan. And we became from business like we get accustomed in Poland, in US, when people pay up front, we became a subscription model which radically changed way of working. So retention was very critical. We got the whole layer of new staffers responsible for customer successes, that students enter their daily classes, remind them, because LTV and economy depended on that, and that was probably the most difficult, to create such a system of initial operations to redo in such a subscription model, which we were not accustomed to, and then building up these partnerships with the part payment systems. We had to demonstrate that we were credible. So that was an interesting way, and then part of this lessons learned in terms of retention, we start applying more in Ukraine and in Poland. Maybe that was not that needed in financial standpoint, but in terms of students' experience and access to training, that was critical. What were the cards solutions? Well, there were local providers. The majority, these were local cards and local payment methods, and initially we engaged SolidGate. They were covering us, and then to make this portion payments, 90% of payment goes by portions. Almost nothing being paid up front, so we had to get a local campaign and hire the team. Well, definitely a local team was hired immediately because the peculiarity of business, we sell through the phone, so it should be local, Portuguese language, and things that are not obvious. People do not talk by phone on Brazil. In any market we sell, but people do not talk by phone, so it should be CRM, so slow, big chat, so video, because they tend to talk, they would like to see opponents, so build a trust and confidence. Again, little things, but they were changing our processes on the go. We're growing, steadily developing and adapting. Was that expensive, that experience for you? Well, I would say, but for other things that we would be aware before, we would be quicker. Are you profitable? We are profitable in Brazil, but it was quite an expensive learning, but it's still an experience. Olga, question for you. Have you had a case when your content that was effective globally failed in a location and was not demanded? Yes, I probably would start that it is critical not only what you are talking about, but what the first thing you demonstrate to the user, because when you enter a new location, it is very critical to maintain the engagement that is already available on the local dimensions. You definitely have to translate to the language of the new market, but let's be fair, there were cases that a sort of content failed, maybe subject to an extent, if we speak about some Asian region, that different things, because people, first of all, pay attention to different things, but content is a hub of the problem. We are the coaching platform, and content is part of the solution. Then chats with coaches and one-to-one sessions. So we decided to make a Spanish localization because it's B2C platform. It's relatively easy to get to different areas. We can do test pilot, see how creatives work on a different language, and super just check the conversion. If it works, we'll proceed. But with chats, we missed a bit. Obviously, the Spanish localization is not only Spain, different regions, Latin America, Mexico, but with that Spanish ones were the most eager, the most keen, impatient, because we decided originally to keep the coaches English speaking and seeing how that would succeed. And then we realized that translating in a real time through ChatGPT or any translating service, there are many available, but it takes time because people come with different requests, and life coaching platform and requests may be different from career up to leadership, relations, anything. And unlike Americans, Americans are more patient. They come and ask, do you have time? Are you up to speak? Spains are different. They start typing 10 messages in 10 seconds. Where's my response? Why I don't have my response? I'm waiting. I've paid. I need now to resolve my problem in a second. And obviously, our coaches will start complaining. We do understand that this is a startup, but do something with that. And as you will start scaling the supplies with Spanish native speakers, and the same with Spanish. So we have a Spanish-speaking coaches running the sessions, otherwise we can't do it.
Do you have the market of 140 countries? Yes. And what about other countries besides the Spanish one? Did you have anything similar? No, because mostly English localization is covering the requests which are needed. And the Asian market? No, we are not at the Asian market. Okay. Can I comment on that? The history of the content. Let me tell you about Brazil. It's interesting. We thought that we will create it cheap and dirty. We have lots of educational videos and content, but it's either in English or Ukrainian. So searching, translating, to search a new person to record it with would take too much time. We thought that to do it through HeyGen lip sync, and it will be working. We used to do that in other countries. In Brazil, we were hated. They instantly understood that it was AI, people hated it, and we needed to re-record it to have a live person for that. Let me add, we have the team of Spanish language translators translating content, because we used to think to do that quickly through any translator, but then the Spanish people wrote to us, what are you taking money for? One of our translators turned out to be not an authentic Brazilian. We did not know it, but he turned out to be a Venezuelan. And the students said, he has the accent, he is not from Brazil, you need to change him. Did you? Yes, we had to re-record it. Okay, cool, thank you. Now it's time for the quick question answers. You will have about 1 minute each to answer the questions. So the question for each of you, and you will answer one by one. So first, Fedir. Okay, Sasha, let's start with you. Because we started with Fedir, now I'd like to change the strategy. So the question is, at which of the markets you'd like to work most of all? I would not speak about geographies. Maybe I would like to work at the markets with a good unit economy. That's what I like. It does not mean it's not important what country this is. Well, Sasha is CFO in Mate. Yes, it reflects on me. Okay, what is a good unit economy then? We have double digit, and that's it. My friend pretended, he always said that you need to earn more than you spend. Okay, fair. Dmytro, where would you like to do it most of all? Where we work, except the countries under sanctions, but I would say out of non-pragmatic ambitions, maybe Ukraine, because no one knows what we're doing, honestly speaking. So this is a kind of the wish, so that the people could know what we do and we can create products which can be of high quality. But on the other hand, this is one of the main reasons why we are not focused on Ukraine, because from the perspective of unit economy, it is not working, and we are rather pragmatic as well. I think you're pretending. At least those who are reading Vector know about you, because the week before the last, we published your column. Well, yes, they know about some of the Kiss My Apps products, but still, our market from Ukraine is not too big. Okay, Ukraine. However, now I'd like to say maybe you know Saldo Finance, the app for the personal finances. Kismems is already doing that. He moved to us. So maybe now we think that it will be working, but it was not done by us. It was done by a friendly company. Ola, I was listening to the guys. That's it. Now I need to move to the Asian markets, I guess, because the culture itself there can be rather interesting, especially for our product. And I really like to research people, how they behave, which problems they have, how they can solve them. So that's how they work. I have 2 points. I also support the topic with Ukraine. We are thinking about that a bit. But definitely the commercial story, which could be successful. But from the perspective of the commercial profit, a very interesting thing is that I was already mentioning the Arab world, Arab languages, because it is harder than mostly. And if you analyze the market, at least our market, it becomes understandable that the harder the localization is, the fewer the players are, because the complication is the certain threshold of an entry. So you have the opportunity to work if you do the work in a proper way, where the competition is lower and nicer margin then. Everybody needs a margin, right? I remember that we were talking to Yaroslav, and he said that he loves red oceans, not blue oceans, with lower competition. Well, the red oceans are taken by us. There are only blue oceans left. Oleksandr, do you need to instantly localize the product when you enter a new market, or you can do that in the process? What's better? Well, our approach in Meta, we try to invest quickly and cheaply. Minimum of localization in our case. When we have the lip sync, we launch it or fake door test, and we can see that it can work. Then we have more of localization. But gradually, just to try the country, the cheaper, the quicker it is, with minimal efforts, the better it is. Okay, Dmytro. I also wanted to add about the Arabic market. What's useful is not to communalize it, not to make the same localization, because as for the Arabic market, some of the countries, for instance, like the Emirates, they are totally different, or Saudi Arabia is different from Kuwait or Oman, but still they are similar with Israel from the perspective of the market unit economy. economy and how you combine creative part and tariff plans. This region is very inconsistent according to our experience, as well as Asia is, because they have Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Thailand. They don't have much in common, in fact. As for the question of the quick Q&A, could you remind me the question? Do you need to instantly localize the product, or you can get what you have and then you localize it in the way, on your way? Well, it depends on what localization is. Here with the MVP localization can be done, but it's not the fact that it will be working, it will be enough. Localization is the process which, in my opinion, doesn't end. It is continuous. While you're working at the market, you still go on with localizing. Now it is cheap to do that. So of course I would do that as well, but definitely you need to improve. A good point that it's a process, Ola. It depends on the business, at what a stage it is and what the product is. If it is really, it can be done, if it really can be done quickly and cheap, then you need to know what you'd like to test and what specifically indicators you'll focus upon to say what was working, what was not. Because, formally speaking, if it is done according to the textbook, you need to localize the product. Otherwise, you cannot understand the engagement, the regulatives, nothing. You will just see the high refund rate, and what can you say? That it did not succeed. But if it's a startup, like in our case, you don't have time or money to localize it quickly, then you just create the MVP, you enter quickly, you test, you look at the important metrics, and then after that you fully localize the product. Fedir? Want a joke? Okay. I was thinking what was Dmytro saying, and I again did not hear the question. Okay. Localization of the product. Should it be done instantly when you enter the market or in the process? Okay, then I listened to it a bit. So, it depends on the market. Look, sometimes, according to my experience, it depends on the business and the business at the specific market. According to my experience, there are markets where it is compulsory. To create economy, you need localization. For instance, Japan. And there are markets where you can make it later to press on it. Everybody knows perfectly. Let us take the Scandinavian market. It is very nice. They have very nice level of English language among the population. You shouldn't create the localization for the product there. Speaking about languages, in local languages, it's already a certain additional perk when you are already big to achieve the coverage of the market. So it depends on the research which will be conducted with these and those locations. Maybe it also depends how this or that country or its population perceives a different language. They talk, there is certain stigma. Let us not put labels, but they say that the French don't speak English to you. So maybe in such cases you should. Let me tell you the following. In our business, France is performing well in English. Okay, we busted that myth. There is the Central African Republic, and they know English very well in Africa. So really, sometimes you don't need to complicate the things, but you need to know the geography and the peculiarities of the conditions of the region or every state. And then, approximately looking at the intuition and logics, you may understand, with a probability of 80%, whether localization is needed there or not, from the very start or not. Okay, the next question to you as well, so that you shouldn't forget it. How can you understand that your product is really needed at the market? You should test it. On whom? Well, you can take the money from your shelf, invest into the marketing, and to look at it. If it's not your first market, then you know, in average, the product metrics which you can focus upon, And you can take the statistics, take the statistically significant selection of data, and understand whether it works or not, the sample of data. Another option is, if you're at the stage of the growth, you need to go where your competitors are and where they are a success. In the modern world, it's rather easy to understand it with the modern indicators and so on. Olga, it's good that you took all of my answers. Okay, if you don't test it and if you don't look at the competitors, you can have the cost dev. You take the audience, which seems to you to be yours at the market, and you can look whether the product is needed for this audience to understand the volume which is possible at this market for your product. Dmytro? Thank you, colleagues. Well, as you already mentioned, all of the red oceans, we also love them. So if there are competitors at this market, then it means that this product is needed. Then it's not the question whether this product is needed at the market, but whether your product can compete with other products. And it's already, as it was mentioned above, cost dev, analytics, MTP, nothing new can be added there. Oleksandr, save the situation. Okay, I can tell how we select the country. There is the whole universe, how we narrow it down. First, we teach people the IT professions. There should be the gap in the professions between what people earn at the store and what they can earn in the IT. If there is the gap, we can already give the value. So we can say the value pro, that your life will be changed. We will teach you, we will accommodate you. This is an important criteria. Then availability of vacancies, what Valeria said in the previous panel. There are some core metrics. If they are working, then there will be a certain profit. And I will agree with everyone else, the availability of competitors. But we just define that there should be a big player, but he shouldn't be a monopolist. Then it's a good market. It will be hard to fight against monopolist. If the market is too fragmented, it will be hard to become a big one. You cannot consolidate everyone. So we're also trying to look whether there is anyone who has success stories to take 30% of the market. Olga, then the question to you, so that they wouldn't take your answers. Which market for you used to be the most unexpected in the good and in the training, starting sense for you? I will take the market not where we are working now, but where I used to work before. Those are the African markets. I used to work there with Kenya. The website of the news, 70% of content are local news, 30% are education, sports, and all the rest. The market is complicated, in fact, because there is not that much money among the population. It's the similar situation with Brazil. No one will pay you upfront. You will not get subscriptions there. So, in fact, you need to search for your own business model, which more or less can be working, but it depends on the engagement of the audience, because besides content, we created the YouTube channel and we went along different families, collecting life stories, which can be very heavy and hard, but still people were involved, they were helping, commenting on that. Every third video was really close to become viral. And in fact, it's really well involving and attracting traffic to the channel and the platform. Viral ad is perfect. So business is hard, how to create it, but it can be viral and it's very easy to engage the audience there. Dmytro? I will try to comment on the previous point and not to forget the question. I would like to add about the monopolist at the market. You need to be very cautious about that as well. The monopolist is not always the monopolist. We have one of the cases with the products, which Fedir has to do something with as well. When we came to this market, there was one monopolist, and now our product is 3 times bigger than this niche was altogether 3 years ago. So we need to dig deep deeper, looking at the niches, I will remember the refunding. For instance, in Kuwait, zero refund rate all over our products. Culturally, in Kuwait, what I mentioned in UAE, it is not working like this. From culture, from perspective, they consider it to be inappropriate to ask for refund. It's just a religious thing. It's inappropriate for them. And the reverse story, China, where refund is not asked from you as the supplier of the product, by the licensee. So you can lose the whole portfolio if you're not cautious enough. You need to work with that in a different way than you work at other markets. Thank you, Oleksandr. Well, I would not like to speak about Brazil, but the product where I used to work is Philippines market. It's an interesting case on localization. We created the product for the US, and we wanted to test the creatives. And we thought, okay, let us choose Philippines as a sandbox. They have high English proficiency. It's their official language. So we did not localize anything. We launched it at the Philippines, and the Philippines were performing that well that from the sandbox, it was transformed into the main market, which performed better than the US. That amazed me. And nobody asked us for refunds in comparison with the US. Did you try to find out why? Why it happened? Well, it's a riddle. It's a mystery for me. No one was expecting that to do. We just wanted to test the creatives. And for me, it was a kind of indicator that, again, not everything what you think or what you experience tells you can be true. Fedir? I had some time to think, and I found the market. It's like relations. I love and hate relationship. Like healthy relations. That's Turkey, in our case, Turkey. On the one hand, it turned out that we have a huge audience there, which is cool. We have nice demand, but on the other hand, the Turkish lira is very unstable. Awful earthquakes took place. Or Erdogan said something new. They had tries. You're either profitable or not. You're balancing all the time. So this is the specifics, a peculiarity. So this is what seems to me the most perfect example from my experience. Then you will have to think about the next question as well, because the question is, what's the cultural peculiarity which amazed you most of all at the new market? Oleksandr? I will tell about the Brazilians. Besides the carnival, I was surprised that the people were always late. I really hate when people are late. And at any meeting, either those are students or payment providers. When we came there, we had a meeting with our legal partners, with a company which worked with us, and they were late as well, all of the partners, and they are always late for 15 minutes. I still don't understand it, this cultural peculiarity of theirs. It shocks me. Interesting. Someone already told it to us. I don't remember who. Dmytro, didn't you tell us that? Maybe, maybe not. But we had a similar case as well. I just listened to Oleksandr, and it seems to me I have Brazilian roots, origin. But you are on time today. 15 minutes earlier even. Well, because I was controlled, I was under control. Well, it's good that you have Brazilian roots, not Kenyan, because in Kenya it's okay to be late for an hour, and then they will ask you for half an hour, how's your family, what's the weather, what are the events in your country, and you think, let us start finally. Tell us then about your experience, or where you going to tell about Kenya. Well, yes, it is interesting, but I don't want to repeat. Maybe let me take Spanish partners, as well as the French, who don't want to speak English. The Spanish don't like English content as well. They don't like to speak and to write in English. So again, we have this language barrier, which we need to take into consideration. But what amazed me, the majority of the male audience are for the topic of relations. So we have different approaches. For instance, to recover after the breakup or to find new relations. And one of the topics was to save your marriage. We have the average audience, the core of 35 years. The men in Spain don't think that they have to marry at 35 or 40 because they marry much later. When we understood that, all of the topics were working, not this one. And then we understood that this is kind of a separation from the parents, which would be the suitable topic, then the topic about the marriage. And as for Italian market, isn't it like this? I don't know, but maybe something similar, I guess. Dmytro, do you have any interesting case? I can only remember the China because it's a totally different world. The need had a different time period, and then all of the business apps are getting 0 downloads. However, all of the content apps show X3, X4 growth. So this is the seasonality which you need to mean when you plan the market. And also I can remember the US, which we are working with to this or that extent. It's a big country, and it depends on the state. They have cultural differences, and you need to take that into account, that New York, LA, and Texas may have totally different content for the creatives. Thank you. The United States. A cool insight. We always frequently looking through our personal experience. For me, there was a very non-trivial story there. The comeback, or the return of payments for the people. And it turned out that in the US, they have the well-diversified banking system. We can calculate those banks on the fingers of our one hand, and they have more than 200 banks. They are not that well technologically developed, so they have this habit to communicate with the management by phone. And when you want not to have issues with the payments, when the person is coming to you and the bank says that you took the money illegally, then you should have the phone support, because they love to talk about money by phone, not to write about that through emails or chats. Well, maybe not to have evidence after that. Oh, all of that is audio recorded, but still it's a working story. That's the real thing. Cool. Can I tell you about one more thing that's interesting about Brazil? Maybe it would be useful for you. In Brazil, they really hate when people are fired. It is just firing a person is so bad. To protect yourself as a company, you need to hire a lawyer who will be talking to a lawyer of that person, and those two lawyers need to sign that this person will not sue you. There are services of lawyers' companies there who are bribing HRs to have the lists of the fired people. They call them and tell them that we should sue and we will win. This is a standard thing there, and the person can sue during 2 years after being fired. It's always a ticking bomb. You never know whether someone knocks your door. Well, it is easier. While you're in the court trial with one person for 2 years, you'll have to start with another one. That's it from us. Let's make a conclusion. I remembered the quote of Dmytro, that localization is still not just one action, it's a process, and it needs to be done constantly. I don't know how it was for you, but it resonated in me. Let's thank our speakers, Fedir Kotiai, Olga Shapovalova, Dmytro Lola, and Oleksandr Ulytskyi. Thank you.